However, I wouldn't recommend studying into the night. However, I wouldn't recommend studying into the... Yo. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Cheryl. If you're new, welcome to the C Squad. Over here we do beauty, fashion, lifestyle, vlogs, and a bunch of university content. So if you like the sound of that, then hit the subscribe button below, follow me on Instagram, and join the fam. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for joining me again. So today I'm going to be doing a highly requested video. After my how to pass matric with distinctions video, y'all have been blowing up my comment section asking me to do a study tips video, so here it is. So there are a few tips here that I did touch on in my passing matric with distinctions video, so definitely be sure to check out that video. But without further ado, let's get right into it. So my first tip is get organized, and I did say this in the other video. Basically, you don't want to have a moment where you're like, okay, I'm gonna study maths today, and then as you're studying for maths you're like, oh wait, I don't have that worksheet, or oh, where are notes for this, oh, I'm missing things. Don't do that to yourself. Before you study, take like a day. Like I usually do, like the day before I start studying for everything, I take the whole day and organize all my stuff. So whether you have flip files or binders or books or whatever you have, just make sure everything is together and everything is organized. Do not have a flip file that contains notes for different subjects. Do not confuse yourself like that. I personally don't think that that is a good idea. I used to have these little folders that I used to put all my notes in, like extra scraps and all that stuff, and I used to have different colors for different subjects. So purple was maths, orange was Afrikaans, yellow was English, and all that stuff, and I used to separate everything. So if possible, if you use the flip file method, get different flip files. If you use binders, get different binders. Don't have your notes all together because that's just really going to confuse you at the end of the day. The next tip is plan ahead. For the life of me, I do not understand people who start studying the week before the exam. Houseway. So I start studying about a month before my exam. So for each individual exam, I will start studying exactly a month before that exam, or maybe earlier if I have the time. The only time I've ever studied the week before an exam was actually very recently. It was after my first semester. And the UK is super weird, where you have like Christmas break, and then when you come back you have to write exams, which I don't understand, because am I not supposed to be enjoying Christmas? I don't understand. So basically I didn't study during my Christmas break because I was hanging out, you know, going out clubbing, meeting up with my friends and all that stuff, so I didn't study. And then I got back to the UK and it was a week before my exams, and I had to start studying. But I have never done that before in my entire life. Even with second semester exams, this time I did study, I think maybe like 6 weeks in advance. I studied far in advance, and that's what works for me, and I think that's what you should be doing. So in terms of a study timetable, I did mention in the other video that I'm not a huge fan of study timetables, just because if you set out what you're supposed to be studying during that month and I get to Wednesday and I'm supposed to be studying maths and I don't feel like studying maths, I'm not gonna force myself to study maths. Do you know what I mean? Unless maths is the exam that is happening the next day, then I will study maths. But otherwise, I just kind of have a tally in my head. Like my head just kind of processes things, so I know intuitively how much time I have to study for each exam. So I've never had a moment where I'm like procrastinating studying maths until the day before and I haven't studied. That doesn't happen. So I just keep in mind, like, I have how many days, I can split this up into whatever. So I just kind of always know, so I don't need to write it down. But I do know that there are a lot of people who kind of don't work that way and need to write things down. And so if study timetables work for you, then definitely do them. But if you don't have one, don't stress. So now getting into the environment, you need to make sure that you're studying in an environment that works for you. So if you need a quiet place to study, then maybe going to the library is for you. I personally don't really have an issue with like noise. Like if my family is moving around and my brother is like playing video games or something, I don't really have a problem with noise. I will say, however, in matric, I had this neighbor, and she had this like little dog or demon, whatever you want to call it, and this dog would bark all the time. But it was way worse when she would have the dog outside, and for some reason she would take the dog outside from like 10 a.m. until 12 p.m. and like the dog was just yapping the entire time. And you know in matric, when like obviously you're done with prelims or whatever, so you're at home like the whole day, and so I would want to study in the morning because that's when I study, and this dog would be barking. I finally got to the point where I just went out on the balcony and I just, you know, shouted over the balcony and was like, hi, sorry, I'm studying, can you please, you know, take your dog inside, or whatever I said. But yeah, that is the only time I've had a problem with noise. Otherwise I'm pretty chilled. The next thing is whether you want to study at a desk, or if you're like me, you'll study on your bed. I've only started studying recently at my desk, and that's been since I got to uni, but otherwise in matric and the rest of high school I always used to study on my bed, and I didn't find any problems with it. Some people will tell you not to study in your bed or not to watch TV in bed or eat in bed because your bed is supposed to be associated with sleeping, and that it will mess up your mind if you want to go to sleep but your brain sees it as a place where you're alert and studying or whatever. Personally, I haven't had issues with that. So yeah, but you can pretty much do whatever you want to do. The next thing is your time of the day when you're studying. I know there are a lot of people out there who like to study at night. They go into like the 2 and 3 a.m.s or, you know, all that stuff. That's genuinely not me. I'm a day studier, so I prefer to like wake up in the morning and study from like 10 or 11, and then by the time 6 p.m. rolls around, I literally close my books. That's genuinely how I was in matric. The minute it hit 6 p.m. I was closing my books and I was done for the day. But yeah, but it really comes down to what works for you. However, I wouldn't recommend studying into the night before the exam, just because when you are tired, your brain tends to process things not as well. So you need to actually get a good night's rest before an exam. So I even had my English teacher tell me that even if it's the day before the exam and you're not finished with a section or whatever it is, close your books and go to sleep, because at least when you get into the exam and you're not tired and your brain is functioning, you can kind of figure things out. Whereas if you stay up late and you haven't gotten enough sleep, your brain will not be functioning as well, and you can end up making silly mistakes that you wouldn't make before. So yeah, definitely get a good night's rest. If you are a person who prefers to study in groups, then definitely go ahead with that. I personally don't like study groups because I get very distracted, I'm not gonna lie. So I really prefer to study by myself. And then my next tip, which really helped me matric, was put your phone on flight mode. Like literally, put your phone on flight mode, or better yet, go into your settings, go into notifications and switch off notifications for WhatsApp. Because I don't know why it was this way, but in matric, like the group chats were just buzzing all the time, and it genuinely will distract you if you're seeing like 5 messages coming in from a group, and maybe like spice is happening, and so now you're distracted. Like, don't do that to yourself. So the reason why I didn't do flight mode most of the time was in case my parents needed to reach me, but definitely the trick of switching off your notifications for WhatsApp, it's a lifesaver, trust me. So then I did go into this in the other video, but basically a lot of people study by making notes and reading through their work, and that's pretty much how most people study. And with this, I like to do post-it notes, so whether I'm writing terminology on the side or just extra tips and things that I should remember on the side, I like to use post-it notes. I like to use colored pens, so I just like a very colorful environment so that it makes studying more fun, if you get what I mean. I'm a big believer in flashcards. Flashcards are really helpful, especially in theory subjects, so that you are able to write down like what is or whatever, and then on the other side you write down the definition, and that's how you can test yourself. There's also a video that another YouTuber, VCatvu, did where she talks about her studying method, so I would definitely link that down below and you guys can check that out. Writing notes down is more effective than typing them, and there have been tons of studies on it. That's just what the case is. I used to actually have a lecturer who'd make us write down notes, and he like never gave us notes for anything, and we literally just had to write them down. And I think it did help like with remembering and recalling stuff. They also do say that if you write with blue pen, you're more likely to remember what you've written down than if you're writing with black pen, so keep that in mind. Now, one of the things I love to do when I'm studying is to give myself a reward. So when I was younger, I would say to myself, if I'm done studying, I get to have a slab of chocolate or something. When I was a matric, it was more like if I'm done studying for the day, I can watch 2 episodes of Grey's Anatomy. So just give yourself like a little incentive to be like, if I finish 2 past papers, I can do this. If I study 3 hours of maths, I can do this, and just give yourself little rewards in between. Another thing is to take breaks in between studying. I prefer to study for like a shorter amount of time and then take a short break. So I'll study for an hour, then take a 5-minute break, or I'll say to myself, get through 4 PowerPoint presentations and then you can take a break, or whatever it is. I don't think you should take breaks longer than like 10 minutes. If you're taking like a 15-minute break, it's going to be very hard for you to get back in the mood of studying. Another thing is listen to relaxing music, which I do all the time, and I used to do it more often in high school when I had more practical subjects like maths or accounting and I was doing exercises. Then I would definitely put on relaxing music. I don't really do it when I'm actually taking notes because I get distracted. Another thing is, I'm not going to tell you what kind of music to listen to, but just remember, if you're listening to Big Sean and you're trying to, you know, say the words with him, you're gonna get really distracted. So don't do that. Like, listen to something that will not distract you. Another tip is to look at other resources. Your textbook and your notes are not the only thing that you need. Sometimes you can go on YouTube, and this especially helped me when I was in university because I had some maths courses that were pretty challenging, and I would just go on YouTube, and that's how I would incorporate it into my studying. There was even a course that I took that had a lot of science to it, and I'm really like the worst at science, but I sat and I watched like a 2-hour YouTube video and they explained all the concepts, and it ended up making more sense to me, and I ended up passing the course. So don't underestimate YouTube. And then there's also a site called Udemy for anyone who's doing like computer science courses. Udemy is really helpful. I will leave the link down below, because basically sometimes with lecturers, they maybe spend a lecture or 2 building the fundamentals and then they just go off and do advanced stuff. But sometimes you need to slow it down and really go over the fundamentals slowly, and that's why I use Udemy to help me with that. Now lastly, going into medication. Obviously if you're like ADD and all that stuff, you take medication for it. I know a lot of people, well, I know some people who take medication that they shouldn't be taking. Like, I highly discourage the use of medication that is not prescribed for you, so don't be taking ADD medication in order to concentrate if you don't actually need to take it. Also, I know people who like to abuse energy drinks. As your big sister Cheryl, I suggest you don't do that. I really don't think it's healthy and I don't think it's good for you. I personally don't do that. Like, I drink coffee here and there, but not coffee to make me stay up longer. I don't drink Red Bull, Gatorade, or any of that stuff. So yeah, you can do well in school without having to do any of that stuff. As far as natural ways to increase your focus and concentration, I used to take omega-3s, which really helped, and so I would take them in the morning before I went to class and lectures and stuff. And sometimes here and then I take them before I study, and that really helps. Also, there are natural foods that can help you focus, like coffee, green tea, blueberries, dark chocolate. So just research that kind of stuff, and those should help you guys out too. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys can use my tips to do well in high school, university, or whatever stage in life you are at. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to join the C Squad, and hit that notification bell to be notified when I upload new videos. I post every Wednesday and Sunday at 5 p.m. UK time. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!